Let's go, Rider Nation.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Yeah, here we go. It's a feeling now. Get 'em high, get 'em low, 'cause we're dealing now. Everybody's giving it all they got, 'cause we're ready.
This is the Piffles Podcast, your Saskatchewan Roughriders fan podcast. Thanks for joining us here this week. As always, you got me. I'm Alex.
I'm Steve.
And I love technology.
Oh,
I don't know.
you get one upgrade on software, and all of a sudden you don't shut up about it.
Oh, just new bells and whistles. But they're still the same bell that's going to every time I'm right. But just different bells and whistles.
Yeah, we don't need to use that one very often.
More than you did this past week.
Ooh, yeah. Steve said he was going to come back on us, and yep, he went the opposite way. Yeah, your pick'em sucked.
Came back down to earth.
Yep. Thanks for listening on your favorite podcast platform, watching on YouTube, watching on SaskTel Max TV on demand. We appreciate that. Piffles Podcast. You can give us a follow on X at Piffles Pod. I'm at Real Alex D.
I'm at Safamod.
And as always, I do not need nor want your pity follows at Greg on Sports.
You got one though. You got a pity follow. I think
he threatened it. He threatened it.
Oh,
that Bomber
he didn't
fan
actually follow
threatened
through?
it. He didn't follow through because Bomber fans are cowards.
He did like your that was the Vernon Adams song.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, which is on our YouTube channel. So Greg's having fun with some bells and whistles with songs. So check those out on the YouTube channel.
Once again, somebody gave Greg technology. Not good for anybody else.
Hey, I'm having fun. That's all that matters.
Is it?
Give us a like on Facebook as well. And of course, the website, pifflespodcast.com. Piffles Podcast brought to you by our great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. I said last week, everything's so much better after a win. Everything tastes better. Everything smells better. It does this week too. Winning is fun. I hope it never ends. Let's get to it. Let's start talking Riders. This is the opening kickoff. So, of course, the Riders beating the Redblacks on Saturday. Sorry, the Redblacks on Saturday afternoon, 29-16, getting back to 500. Are they over 500 with the tie, 7-7-1? Or is that still technically?
No, that's an even 500.
That's still 500. Okay. But most importantly, jumping back into second place with that win, 1 point up on BC because of that tie, of course. So that's for second place, home playoff game. 3 points up on Hamilton, which is all of a sudden crossover is, I still don't think is likely, but it's a bigger possibility than it has been in a long time, at least for the East. And 5 points up on Edmonton, which basically means Edmonton needs to win out. The Riders need to lose out for Edmonton to pass the Riders. So I can't see that happening, but the Riders putting themselves in very good position with 3 games left in the regular season. So let's talk about this Ottawa game. And we'll get it out of the way, the final 6 seconds of the game, because that's what all anybody's talking about right now. Deontai Williams, his tackle on Khalil Pimpleton, picks him up as Pimpleton's kind of driving down, doubled over a little bit. Williams picks him up. I won't say power bombed or pile drived Pimpleton in the head or on his head, but that's kind of what happened. Dropped him on his head. Let me get your guys' take on this. First, when you first saw it at the game, what was your immediate thought?
Well, my seats kind of looked down that sideline, so I kind of got the head-on version of it. And
unintended.
Yeah, I think Khalil got it head-on, actually.
he did. Didn't look good. That's for sure. But it was hard to tell what exactly happened. You just kind of saw him kind of somersault into Williams, and Williams kind of caught him, and from my point of view, looked like he dropped him. Not necessarily drove him, but dropped him. And the next thing you know, she was Donnybrook. it looked bad. I knew immediately he was getting fined. I guess we'll see if there's suspension. It sounds like he had an in-person, at least a virtual
He had a
hearing
hearing.
today.
Yeah.
So I'm certain that's going to be at least a max fine at minimum, and probably, knowing the CFL, 2 games, and it'll be appealed to 1. But it just didn't look good, and especially at that time of game, that late in the game, it was just one of those things. What do you do?
Honestly, I'm already over it. This idea that he deserves to be kicked out of the league. I've seen so many people say that already, that this guy deserves to be kicked out of the league, that this was the most egregious hit they've ever seen. Meanwhile, you have Davis Sanchez and Henoch Mwamba on TSN basically saying, yeah, this was nothing. This was just Khalil Pimpleton's actions led to what Deontai Williams did. Yes, it was bad. Yes, it was a fine, or should be a fine. But they didn't go anything beyond that. So I'm going to take the word of the pros on this one, not Jim Barker, the real pros, and say that a fine is as much as we should see out of this. And honestly, I think it deserves one. And it looked bad. The timing of it was bad. What was Ottawa doing throwing to Pimpleton with 6 seconds left? The guy's just coming back from a long-term injury. Maybe not the best decision, but and that's not gonna pin him for the actions. It's still on Deontai Williams. But
I was just
that
gonna
whole
say,
play
don't
call was
victim
questionable.
shame him here. Like, come on.
Like I said, that was not why it happened, but I'm questioning why they're throwing to him at all in that situation. Not saying that them throwing to him was what caused it. It was on Deontai Williams. His actions did it. It's just not as egregious as I think everybody seems to want to pretend it is. But that's the reputation the Riders have right now. Everything they do is dirty.
So got it. Anytime somebody returns from injury, don't give them the ball. Got it.
100%.
At that point in the game.
But the fact remains is you had a guy, like, because what happened right before they locked up, Pimpleton stumbled, pushed himself back up because he wasn't down yet, and he kind of lunged directly into Williams' knee/breadbasket, and Williams just took the momentum and went up with him. And he's like, at that point, he's like, "Oh crap! I can't. If I suplex the guy, I'm in trouble too." So he just dropped him.
So I want to say play devil's advocate here, because for one, obviously the hit was awful. That's something that you don't want to see at any point of the game, let alone with 6 seconds left in a 2-score game, which made it even more unnecessary. So this is the kind of stuff the league wants out of the game completely. To me, the only way to do that is to give Deontai Williams a suspension. So had the hearing with the CFL on Tuesday. We should hear some form of discipline expected Wednesday or Thursday. I think it's suspension worthy for that reason. Now, this is also a guy who doesn't have a history of any kind of late hits, cheap hits, dirty hits, nothing like that. There's no history whatsoever with Deontai Williams. So to throw the book at him, I don't think would be completely fair. But at the same time, if you want to preach player safety, which the CFL does, not that they actually mean it, because they clearly don't, but if they are serious about it, there has to be suspension here. I don't think it should be more than 1 game, but I think there needs to be something here just to say you cannot do that. You cannot grab a guy, pick him up, and drop him on his head. Now, thankfully, obviously, Pimpleton got up right away. So I don't want to say it's a moot point, but he got up right away. He's good. And ultimately, that's what matters. But Greg, you mentioned it. This is the reputation the Riders have now. And of course, Jeremiah Mazzoli post-game, when asked about it, you could see him kind of biting his tongue, holding his breath. Said he wasn't going to say anything much about it. It consistently happens over here, talking about Saskatchewan, but it is what it is. So this is a guy who, I mean, we know about the Gary Marino thing, right? So, and with Miles Brown, who actually held up a few times in that game, so he would not take a penalty. The league is going to be looking, refs are going to be watching the Riders even more closely now because they have this reputation. And just give them a one game, get it over with, and move on.
That's what
I hope happens. But at the same time, I mean, he owned up to it. Deontai Williams did. He did apologize to Khalil Pimpleton, sent him an email after the game saying, I've never been that guy, that tried to get into the way of you feeding your family. I was trying to get under you, but I couldn't. So I ended up looking bad of me slamming you to the ground and you ended up falling on your neck. But he did apologize to him, which was good. And Corey Mace obviously had words with him after the game. But we'll see in the next day or two what comes out of that.
I can't see it being more than a game, just for the simple fact. Speaking of Garrett Marino, he only got 2 for basically intentionally breaking Mazzoli's legs. So I can't. If they throw anything higher at that point, they're just trying to create a scene and set a precedent that they've never set before.
I won't be upset if a suspension comes out of it. I'm not saying it's not necessarily deserving of one. I think a fine makes sense. A suspension is definitely possible, and I don't think you'll see a lot of arguing if it does happen. I just wonder if this is the hit they want to use to set precedent when they've seen, guys going headfirst into quarterbacks all season long. Not just in Saskatchewan, but across the league, and this is the hit. A hit we probably may never see again.
A league that celebrated Kyrie Saber.
Right? Like, it just seems like this is one of those, I don't like to use the term, but this would be the one that you're doing to, like, virtue signal more than anything. You're not making a point. No, but you're not going to see this hit again. This was just a lot of things that led to one, bad look. But I guess we'll find out.
Now, as for the game itself, this was a dominant defensive effort. This was probably the best defensive game that they've played in my mind all year long. It helped that Jeremiah Mazzoli was awful. I don't think he's ever played that bad. The ducks he was throwing, like, he was underthrowing everything and then overthrowing and just making awful reads. But at the same time, it was that defense that was forcing him to do that. They were confusing him. They were getting pressure from the D line. This was just a phenomenal game plan by the Riders defense, by Corey Mace, by Josh Bell to throw Mazzoli off. And it worked. 3 picks. Milligan got his league-leading 7th interception. Auclair had a nice one. Sales absolutely baited Mazzoli into just a terrible out pattern throw to the sidelines. And I cannot say enough about this defense from this game.
The defense was rock solid, and there's a reason why I've been pumping Milligan as most outstanding player. The dude is playing on a different level right now. He's all over the field. He's making plays. He's making hits. He's making, obviously, interceptions. And he's playing special teams to a very high level. But let's talk about that. Jumping ahead, DeMarcus Fields, like, they should have had a touchdown on defense. Like, just
okay. Well, let's talk about that. That was Khalil Pimpleton again. Catches the ball,
turned to him. He just came back from injury.
Sorry. Right? We've already established this, especially at that juncture of the game. Right. Clearly made the catch, turned around, was starting to make a move, got hit, and ball came loose. Now, my issue with the whole thing, so Fields picks it up, runs it for a touchdown. They rule it incomplete, even though they let it play out. The officials eventually gathered together, then ruled it incomplete. My issue with that is let it go. It's a possible turnover. It's a possible scoring play, both of which are automatically reviewed. So the process should be, if it's that close, let it play out. Call it the fumble and touchdown on the field. Go to review. Then whichever coach, doesn't matter which coach, doesn't have to waste their challenge flag. To me, that's the way the process should be. And I thought they botched it on that one. That said, they probably weren't going to overturn it either way, but I still think they got it wrong here.
But even if they did overturn it, because they deemed it as an incomplete pass, the touchdown would have been wiped off the board, because at that point, an incomplete pass is a dead ball. So they should have just
automatic or immediate recovery by the Riders. Yeah, they would have had the ball wherever they picked it up.
Yeah, so that would have wiped the touchdown off the board anyway. You're right.
I'm curious if it would have, because they did let the play out, and there was no whistle at any point. I feel like they may have allowed the touchdown to stand if
not if they ruled it an incomplete pass.
Yeah, the minute they ruled it the minute they ruled it an incomplete pass, that's a dead ball.
Given how they allowed that play to go on, I'm not 100% sure on that. By the rule book, absolutely, but that doesn't always mean much when it comes to the CFL. So to me it was a very definite hit or fumble and recovery. I don't see how there was any question. You see the catch, you see the turn, you see the step, and then he got decked. There was clear possession on that play. I don't get it. I think they got that one wrong, but what do you do?
I can see the refs in real time going, okay, that was bang, bang. There's no way. The fact that they could watch it in the replay booth and not see that just blows my mind. Like, he legit did a 180-degree turn with the ball in his hands to turn upfield, and they still said he didn't have possession of it. Just like, what?
I mean, they've been missing stuff all year, so I'm not really surprised by that. I mean, to me, it's not the fact that if it was an incomplete pass, it's an incomplete pass. That's fine. But I just think the process should be, when it's that close, you're going to let it play out anyway, let it play out, and then go to automatic review.
I think the problem you'll have with that from the CFL level is then if they get together and decide it was incomplete, that's the rule that has to be overturned. Whereas if they allow the touchdown to stand, that's where the overturn. So you have to see the clear and obvious evidence that it wasn't a turnover. So you do have to go with the call on the field in the end. I do appreciate that they let the play continue, just in case one of them did decide it was a catch and they could go on. But they have to go with whatever call they deem it on the field. You can't just allow it to be a touchdown every time and go to review in that sense, just because of how they determine whether they can overturn it or not, right?
But
they call it right away.
Well, exactly. That's my problem. Here's my problem. If someone thinks it wasn't a catch, they should be blowing it down right now.
Run in there, arms waving, incomplete.
It shouldn't have to take a union meeting to decide whether or not it's a catch or not. If it's not a catch and you see it's not a catch, call it. And then if the coach goes, no, you're an idiot, I'll throw my flag. Fine. But if you were just going, maybe let's see what we all think, and if you can convince me, maybe I'll go with you. Like, no. If you see it's not a catch, call it not a catch on the field. Deal with the coach. Don't wait until you can all just, it's like it's 50% of a catch, and you got 25% of catch. You got 33%. Okay, we're at 100% not a catch. Like, no, like I hate this indecisiveness. The referees complain all the time that fans get on it. Make a decision.
Like, I can live with there's always going to be human error when it comes to refereeing in any sport, and that's fine. I'm perfectly okay with that as long as it's not egregious. Just like you said, just make a call. If that's what you believe it is, call it.
There should not be that many conferences. There was 4 or 5 of them this last game. Like, make a call.
Thank goodness we had Ben Major, though, to say after all of that.
He's a beauty.
I love that they're letting the refs have fun on the mics here now, with now Tom Valesi getting into it with the third punt in BC place, hitting the scoreboard, this time getting stuck up there. I love that kind of stuff.
I swear they lowered that scoreboard on purpose.
Let's talk about before we talk about the Riders offense, I do want to give a shout out to Keaton Brugling. Ottawa's receiver, number 87, dropping that easy touchdown pass. That was a game changer. It was 15-6. 15-6 in the fourth quarter. He catches that. The Redblacks are within a score, and it's a 2-point game once they hit the convert. So that's a vastly different fourth quarter. The Riders, they settled for a field goal. The Riders on the next drive converted on a 1st and 20 by Del Duncan Busby, set up the Thomas Bertrand-Houdon touchdown run. That was, if there was a TSN turning point, that was it, was that drop. And so shout out to Keaton for dropping that pass. We appreciate it, bud. Thank you.
I had to laugh though because I was watching the highlights and I think they said, yeah, Keaton doesn't get in much, and I'm like, I wonder why.
That could not have been any more of an easy touchdown pass. You will never get an easier one in your career. And let me tell you, section 125 and 126, sure let him hear it for the next couple of minutes.
Yes, we did. But the best part is, I bet the defense goes, no one's going to throw to him. Who the hell's Keaton Brugling?
Yeah, exactly.
And now we know why.
But the Riders' offense, obviously, Gabe just mentioned there, the 1st and 20. Del Duncan Busby, I want to talk about him right off the bat. He was fantastic. And kudos, Jeremy O'Day and the scouting staff for the Riders for drafting this guy, because they've nailed yet another Canadian receiver from the looks of it. And they might have 3 good Canadian receivers from this draft. Of course, Deshaun Mims in back at school at the U of R, and Joe we know about, right? So,
and Busby went before both of them. Like, just like the depth of Canadian receiver on this team right now is nuts.
Well, and him stepping up, becoming that, I don't want to say the number 1 target. To me, that's still Keyshawn Johnson right now, but to see a guy step up like that after just having a couple passes his way the first couple games of his career, and now having that breakout, I'm looking forward to seeing, what's next and building that trust, that confidence in Trevor Harris, who will throw him the ball. He's never been shy about, spreading the ball around and not focusing on one guy, but sending lots of targets one way, right? So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do as an encore here against Edmonton this week.
That catch where he basically stole an interception from that Redback player who thought he had it.
The other way.
So did I. Oh, I'm like, oh my God, because I saw the defensive back jump the route, and I'm like, oh no, and just yoink.
Well, and that was a minute before that was when I texted you guys in the DM group and said, man, it sure feels like the Riders are going to let this slip away, doesn't it? Yeah. So it felt really close there for a second, but so he was great stepping up, obviously needed, especially with Keen Schaefer Baker getting hurt in that game. He came back, but really wasn't a factor in the second half of the game. So Duncan Busby was great. Thomas Bertrand-Houdon stepping up for Rock Armstead. Of course, Rock Armstead in a kind of like Steve here in a sling.
Steve showing solidarity.
Yeah,
I just want to be one of them. All right, it looked like fun from the sidelines.
Yeah, you can play on offense with Dante Myers and Rock Armstead both in slings right now. But Thomas Bertrand-Houdon having 72 yards, huge fourth quarter runs, that touchdown run. I want to ask, when you guys saw that touchdown run, after obviously cheering and whatnot, what did you think of? Did anything just kind of like jump up to you guys? Because I had 2 names in my head when I saw that touchdown.
I thought Zarka.
I thought Zarka.
Yeah. Then I've no.
And I thought Stu Ford.
Oh,
remember Stu Ford's game against BC where he had those 2 touchdowns?
And then they didn't go to him again the following game. Yeah, I remember that very well.
For whatever reason, that just reminded me of Stu Ford, just the quick little move on the handoff. That's right. And just breaking it up straight up field with nobody back there. So
I stand by.
Hell of a juke you put on Damon Webb, though, too.
I stand by on that one Stu Ford touchdown. He wasn't supposed to take the ball. He just took it away. But
I hope that game earned him another chance on the field. He is. Every time he gets the ball, he seems to do something with it, whether it's special teams or, behind center. He seems to have it figured out.
He stopped wearing the Guardian cap though.
Well, he was only wearing that on kickoffs.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But
And
Steve,
not even
to your
punts,
point,
just specifically kickoff.
yeah, specifically kickoffs, wasn't on punts. But Steve, to your point about whatever you just said before the kickoff thing.
That he just seems
every
to
time
make plays wherever he is.
Yeah, that goes back to last year, and he was having a good average at the end of the last year, and then obviously this year with AJ Ouellette and now with the injury to him, Frankie Hickson, and now Rock Armstead, not a lot of carries going his way. But this is a guy I'd like to see get 6, 7, 8 touches a game, just to keep the starting running back fresh and have a little bit of a rotation there, but also it's that change of pace. And he's a guy who can run inside the tackles and, like we saw, bust one outside. And his touchdown run, I don't even think was his best run of the game. I think his best run was after that, killing the clock, where he just about broke another one. And Emilus, if Emilus had that block on the or on the defensive back, that was another touchdown. But I thought that was his best run. But every time this guy gets the ball, he's going forward, he's making plays, he's getting yards, and I'd like to see a little bit more of him in the offense going forward.
And once again, this offensive line is doing a very good job at run blocking. This offensive line, despite being, it's not a 200. You're not going to get a 200-yard.
That first half did in fact happen, Greg. I don't know that there was much in the way of run blocking until Bertrand Boudon. Yeah, the first half with Armstead in there, they were not great. There was no holes. There was no room for Armstead to do anything.
I stand by.
But they did improve.
Jones out was a bad idea. I still think taking Jones out was a bad idea. I'm just throwing that out there.
Credit to Ottawa's D-line, because their D-line is their strength of their defense for sure. It was their linebackers that sucked. Trevor Harris. Again, another good game. Said this to you guys in the DM. I thought it was a penalty when a quarterback gets tackled below the knees. Apparently not if your name is Trevor Harris or if you're wearing a green jersey, obviously getting sacked, tackled by his ankles. If he was wearing blue, is that a penalty?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain the rule is above the knees and below the neck.
Well, no. You can't even. It has to be above and below. You can't even slide down because gravity doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the very definition of roughing the passer, and I don't think it should be, but
no,
that hit absolutely goes by the rules of roughing the passer, and yet
if Miles Brown grabs Jeremiah Mazzoli by the ankles to tackle him for a sack, I guarantee you there is crap flying on social media. Yeah. Things are happening.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but I don't even know who that was that hit Trevor Harris. They never said. You don't hear a single word about it.
Colton Hunchak.
Whatever scout said he's the next Nick Lewis, he needs a punch to the face.
You can see he's been sitting on the couch for a while.
I was like, who the heck is that? I'm like, why do we have another offensive lineman out there? Like, don't get me wrong, Hunchak. I'm sorry. I'm the last person to fat shame somebody. But, dude, you came in out of shape. I am sorry.
Well, and honestly, it's not like they needed him to run a whole bunch of routes. Obviously, when Bain got hurt, that's what pressed him into more route running and whatnot. If he can just be the backup and come in and block a couple times, ultimately, that's all you need out of right now our backup Canadian receivers, since all of our receivers are getting injured. But catch the ball. I know it was your first game. Catch the ball. That hits you in the hands. And I don't care if you're getting hit while it's happening. You're a pro. You're a fifth-year pro. You have to have that catch. And I got an argument with Leanne on Twitter about this. And she goes, well, it was his first game. He's only been there for 3 days. Yeah, but he's a fifth-year pro. If he's running the wrong route, yes, okay, he's only been there 3 days, new playbook. I get that. That's fine. If he zigs when he should have zags, I totally get that. That's fine. Catch the ball. It's literally your job as a receiver is to catch the football. And we've had issues with this with every single receiver this year. And it's just annoying to me. Catch the ball. The KSB dropped one as well, to an easy one.
KSB ran the wrong route. You can tell him and Harris kind of looked at each other and they did one of these because someone went the wrong direction. Like, that happens. But when a ball hits you in the hands, unless your name is Keaton Brueggeling, catch it.
You know, honestly, to me, the dropped pass wasn't even the worst one. There was that deep ball from Trevor Harris that literally any other receiver in the Canadian Football League was underneath it. I don't know what it was. It was 5 feet away from him, but he just didn't seem to have that second gear, let alone the third, fourth, or fifth gear. He just it looks like he has one speed, and it's meander.
I can speak from experience. When you get that big, you're like a diesel engine. It takes you a little while to get up to speed, but once you get there, man, you are there.
But that was 30 yards down the field. That should be where his top speed is then.
He runs a 40. His top speed's at 40. You finish strong.
We'll talk about one more receiver as well, and that's Sean Bain Jr. And of course, that hit to the knee. So we've seen the still photo of that knee bending very badly. He was on crutches on the sideline, still in uniform, had a big brace on his knee for the remainder of the game after that. First off, it sounds like it's not as serious as it probably could have been. Sounds like he doesn't need surgery. That said, it still doesn't look great, is what Corey May said after day one of practice this week. So I personally don't expect to see him for the rest of the year, for being completely honest. But it doesn't sound like there's ACL tear in there. So that's the good news. Should that have been a flag for a hit on a defenseless receiver? Because that was the first thing I thought of. This guy did not go for the ball. He tried to cut out his knees when he wasn't looking. To me, that's textbook hit on a defenseless receiver.
I saw a few people trying to justify that Money Hunter was going for the ball and then the last minute
was
realized
not.
I haven't seen the full replay, couldn't tell you.
The ball was up near Sean Bain's hands. You're not going for an interception at the knees.
I agree. So, however, some people are justifying it that way. If I have learned anything over the entire Miles Brown saga, arguing with everyone online because they all end up in my bloody feed, is intention doesn't matter. You do a dirty hit on somebody, it doesn't matter if you were aiming for the strike zone and gravity happened to pull you down and you land on Chris Drevler's knee. It doesn't matter what your intention was. You did a dirty hit. So let's see that on a DB on a receiver instead of a defensive lineman on a quarterback. Please make some sense of it because I don't get it.
I'm torn on this one. I think it was a rough hit. I think suspension. I think a fine is very likely.
You're going to say suspension for that and not for
no.
Deontai Williams?
Sorry, my brain went in 3 different directions. But I could see him getting fined for that hit. But I don't know that this is one of those defenseless receiver type situations that they're trying to get rid of. Unfortunately, guys go for the legs as often as possible because it's the easiest way to stop a guy. In this situation, it looks bad because his leg was planted and ended up bending in the wrong direction. You know, half a second earlier, and Bain just flips, potentially on his head, and we have a whole nother situation. Should they eliminate those hits? Absolutely. But they're not, and it's not something they're looking at. I don't see it being anything beyond that.
Yeah, I'm not saying there should be a suspension, but to me, that's should have at least been a flag at the very least. But anyway, Riders winning 29-16, And again, I will eat the crow on Brett Lothar going 7 for 7 in this one. People are saying, where's the people that wanted him cut? Well, I'm right here, and I will always admit that I'm wrong when I'm wrong. And I did on this one. He's been fantastic since his awful game against, what was that? That was against Toronto, I think.
Montreal.
He was awful in that, and then has been excellent ever since. And they needed him because this game was your typical Trevor Harris game. Yep. Great between the 20s, couldn't finish. And this has been Trevor Harris his entire career. And this is exactly what we saw. So actually, they brought it up on the broadcast, and it was really interesting to hear. The Riders have had the best starting field position this year in the CFL. So obviously, a lot of that has to do with turnovers because it hasn't been from our return game. That's for damn sure. But when you're getting the ball, they got to finish. And I know that's obviously what you want to build towards to the playoffs, but you got to finish drives. So hopefully that's what we see. But also, I talked about the return game. Mario Alford returned that missed field goal out of the end zone, getting the ball up to what Ottawa's 42-yard line, I think, is where he got it to, something like that. So again, good field position to start. So.
That was absolutely the slowest developing field goal return I think I've ever seen in my life. I panicked for a second when he started to bring it out because he did it so slowly. But he was just looking for that hole and he hit it. And that is the Mario Alford that we remember from the past couple of seasons. If that's the guy that we're getting to close this year out, I'm excited because that's the guy that looks for the hole, not the sideline. And he ran hard. I'm hoping the last couple games are a sign that he's flipped that corner, no pun intended, and is heading upfield.
Yeah, his game against Calgary, he was on the CFL's honor roll for that one, and another good return game this week. And yeah, he's going forward. He's not running out of bounds. He's taking hits now, so we'll need that going forward. Couple roster moves for the Riders last week that kind of affected this game anyway. Linebacker Zach Fillion was brought back, just needed another Canadian body to play special teams because Jordan Herdman-Reed back on the 6-game injured list, although he might be playing this week too, so who knows. And then they signed a defensive back, Robert Javier. Javier, I don't know exactly the pronunciation.
I think it's Javier.
Is it Javier?
Javier, yeah.
But a defensive back, more of a signing for next year than anything. First thing I thought of when I saw this was some people were saying, well, I wonder how long it's going to take for him to get in. Well, hopefully it's not this year because that means everybody's healthy and everything's going good. But at the same time, that's exactly how Roland Milligan got his start back in 2022. Was he was signed in late September, got into a couple games in October, and now he's the best player in the CFL.
So, he looked very good from the hop too, which is
exactly. And one other Rider note before we move on here, Steve Molnar, who is going to go into the Plaza of Honor next week with Darian Durant and Roy Shivers. His induction has now been deferred to next year because his family wouldn't have been able to make it. They're dealing with a family member's health issue right now. So great that they can say to the Riders, hey, we can't make it. And the Riders say, you know what? No problem. We'll do this next year. Whenever we can get you up here, that's when we'll do it. So they'll do that next year. And it'll just be one less at this year's Plaza, but still a pretty good Plaza class next week, which we're going to talk about next week on the show.
And no disrespect to Steve Molnar, no. Doubles and Roy deserve all the time they get because they meant a lot to this franchise. Not saying nothing against Steve, like I said, but I'm glad they get a little extra flowers on this one, especially Roy.
I'm just gonna cut that part out of the show. Nothing against Steve. I may use that in the future.
Well, there's the opening kick.
You don't know how to edit. I'm fine.
Hey, I edited the show for the first couple of years of our existence.
That was just audio, though. Come on.
Didn't say I did it well.
Well, that's the opening kickoff presented by Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty. That was a long one. Let's get to the Churchill Brewing Company odds and end zones. Okay, we'll do it this week. Most outstanding player. Who is the MOP this year? Now, the CFL, that's the way they word it. Most outstanding player, MOP. Outstanding. Who's the most outstanding player? Not the most valuable, because I think answers are very vastly different in my mind. Who is the most outstanding player this year in the CFL? So you guys can see it on the document that we have here. Calgary,
I just saw
put
your list
LOL.
and I had a good laugh. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah. Calgary, I put LOL. Edmonton, I put LOL. Ottawa, I put Hardy, the receiver with a question mark. Toronto, I put nope. There's a reason why I put no there. But nobody's really stood out, right?
No.
Now, the other teams, okay, there's some legitimate candidates here. We'll start in BC. Justin McInnes and William Stanback would be their two options. Do you guys think either one of them should be most outstanding player?
McInnes is going to be the nominee for outstanding Canadian.
Yeah,
easily.
he started out excellent, has tailed off considerably.
If he would have kept his pace up, there's no doubt in my mind. Like those first 3-4 games, unreal numbers. But yeah, he's tailed off. Stanback, well,
he's actually trending up a little bit.
He's trending up. He's only a couple yards behind. Apparently, the runaway favorite from the West, Brady Oliveira. So, my feed this week. Anyway, it's not. Unfortunately, sitting VA. VA was probably their best shot at most outstanding player until Rourke came back.
Honestly, I'd have no issues if it came down from the West side. If it came down between Justin McInnes and Roland Milligan. With 1,200 yards receiving with 3 games to go, he could realistically top 1,500. Now, his numbers, again, have tailed off of late with Rourke behind center. But if he were to continue the pace, I could see the discussion there. But this talk of Brady Oliveira being the presumptive nominee out of the West is absurd to me. The guy didn't find pay dirt until week 17. Like, your job as a running back is to score. Yes, he gets yards, and he is, if he was the clear runaway rushing leader, but wasn't getting the points to go with it, I could see it.
Now, what if you're not getting a lot of yards, but you're getting all the touchdowns? Such as your guy.
Thank you for being such a big supporter and fan of the CFL and myself personally.
Because that's why Brady Oliveira doesn't have the glamour stats and touchdowns, is Chris Streveler.
But every quarterback...
you give those to Brady Oliveira.
If your running back gets down to the 1-yard line, every quarterback in the CFL is your next guy up. They're the ones stealing those 1-yard touchdown runs. Unless you're Milanovic Litre, who does it himself. Where is he, in Hamilton now?
Hamilton, yeah.
Yeah. But this idea, if I could see a guy with, leading the league in rushing and running away with the touchdowns, sure, okay. But he's not running away with either one. He's middle of the pack, and he's far off his numbers from last year. And I'm sorry, but when you are the MOP from last season, that matters.
But even in a situation where Streveler's getting the touchdowns, at some point he should be able to break off a 10-yard run, a 20-yard run for a touchdown, and he couldn't. And also, the fact that he has so many yards is because Zach is throwing an interception for every touchdown he gets. So I would probably hand off the ball a lot too. Like, that Winnipeg team, yes, they're winning, but they're not that good. They're beatable. And I don't know. The fact that everyone says Brady is the hands-on favorite just blows my mind. And the fact that he went up plus 200 or no, almost 2,000 in the betting odds this past week. Just either a lot of money's coming in on him, or I don't know what these guys are doing.
See, and I don't even think he should be the most outstanding candidate or Canadian candidate for the West, that should be Justin McInnes in my mind. So that right there automatically dispels him as most outstanding player. Now, outstanding, that's the word that I want to focus on. Brady Oliveira has been very good this year. I like Brady Oliveira. I do. I like him as a person. I like him as a football player.
Agreed.
I would love for him to be in green and white. Don't get me wrong. That said, he hasn't been outstanding. Nothing about him and his numbers this year blows you away. You look at what Roland Milligan Jr. has done, leading the league in interceptions, still near the top of the league in special teams tackles.
He's
Absolutely.
number one.
Is
He's
he
number
number
one
one
in special
again?
teams.
Yeah,
He's number one in special teams. Yep.
You don't see a guy who plays every single snap on defense, play on special teams, and lead the team, lead the CFL in special teams tackles. He does so much more for this team than anybody else in the league does for their team. He is the most outstanding player this year. He should win Defensive Player of the Year. Though I wouldn't be surprised if they give it to Beverett, the cover linebacker in Montreal. Roland Milligan Jr. is so far ahead in this race in my mind. And I'm not trying to be the Ryder Homer saying that. Roland Milligan has been outstanding. When I look at who's been outstanding this year, he's the first name on my list. Everybody else, yeah, they're having good years. They haven't been outstanding. Roland Milligan, first name. That's the guy.
He leads the league in pass knockdowns, leads the league in interceptions. He is third overall in defensive tackle. No, sorry, he missed a game, so I think he's like fourth or fifth as a defensive back.
He's 11th in
tackles.
defensive tackles.
Oh, is it
right
11th? So, but he's third overall in complete tackles, right? That's combined tackles.
Probably when you include,
The special teams
in
yes.
there. Yeah.
Like he is all over the field. That play against Willie Jefferson on that onside kick, he is everywhere on the field. You watch the defensive highlights, he is in the frame of when Sales is making a play, like when Thurman's making a play. He is all over that field. He is playing above everybody else right now. And yes, defensive players will not get the flashy stats. I did that quick cut video, and it was all interceptions because guess what? When Brady Oliveira does a hard run, there's a highlight package of him breaking tackles. You know how hard it is to find a defensive player not getting basically torched? It's impossible. Like at some point, they need to get a most outstanding player because it is a offensive award only. They need to go to MOP and most outstanding defensive player.
Yep.
Just give it a most outstanding player. Make it a defensive award because then we don't need to have this argument because it's usually a quarterback award anyway.
Yep.
You should have a most outstanding offense, most outstanding defense, and a quarterback only like the Cy Young in baseball. Quarterback can't win the other ones. Give them their own award, unless they do something spectacular that deserves both. But and the sad part is we're going to look at this and a guy who did nothing for the first half or a team that did nothing for the first half of the year has a good shot as any of hosing the most outstanding player in Bo Levi Mitchell.
Yeah, I was going to say the one other player that's really stood out stats wise has been Bo Levi Mitchell. But if Hamilton misses the playoffs, can you really give it to a guy? MOP, you can give a best Canadian or something, but MOP to a guy that misses the playoffs, especially in that glamour position, I don't think you can.
But here's the thing where this entire awards thing and votes and who votes and who doesn't. I guarantee you, no one watches games anymore. Like, there's just not enough time, and with shrinking news desks and these guys are so everywhere. They're watching highlights, checking stats. That's all they're doing for not all the games, but most of the games. If you're in the East, guarantee you haven't watched every single BC Lions game. So how do you know who you're voting for? So you go and check the stats. Unfortunately, the flashy stats, receptions, touchdowns, all that, going to pop right out at you. They need to change in how they vote on these awards. They're never going to give it to the fans because if they do that, well, the Riders are going to win it every year.
Just do a poll on social media. That's perfect.
Listen, Greg, the CFL has already made the change they're going to make this year and added the all CFL team. Don't ask them to do more than that this season. That is enough. They've made their change. Let's slow down a little bit. We're not going to add more awards now, too.
I'm not asking for
That's
more
pushing
awards. I'm just
Literally just
I'm
did.
just saying. No, I'm asking for them. No, you asked for more awards. You're the one who wants a quarterback and a defensive player.
You said the
I'm
MOP
just-
and the most outstanding defensive player. That is literally
change-
more awards.
No,
Change
change
the
the most outstanding player to the MOOP.
And please just name it the MOOP.
Yeah, call it the MOOP. I'm calling it the MOOP. No, you're wrong. It's the MOOPs. Seinfeld reference. There we go. But
and they should add us an assistant coach award as well.
I agree.
Edwin Harrison would win that running away this year. Riders offensive line coach.
I want every sports award to be modernized, going back to these print writers, and no one follows that many sports anymore, and they just need to figure out a better system. So, and now I'm off my soapbox.
All right. Well, now that you're back down with the rest of us peasants, let's take a look at this game. Riders Elks this upcoming Saturday. The Riders can clinch a playoff spot this week if Hamilton loses to Winnipeg, the Riders beat the Elks, and Calgary loses to BC, I think is how it works. So the Riders can clinch a playoff spot this week. They can effectively eliminate the Elks from the playoffs by beating them. So for Edmonton, McLeod Bethel Thompson is going to start. Jarius Jackson has already announced that, which to me is a big sigh of relief. Because
Thank God.
he's been so inconsistent. And even in games that he's played well himself, the team isn't winning. So the Riders have had issues with mobile Edmonton quarterbacks. Taylor Cornelius ran for damn near 200 yards against them last year.
Mobile quarterbacks in general. Dustin Crum gave us fits earlier this year.
Yeah. And we saw how bad the run defense was that one game when Edmonton came into Mosaic and kicked the crap out of us. It was Javon Leake going off. It was Rankin going off. And it wasn't even Trey Ford running it all that much. It was just the threat of him possibly, running an RPO. So thank you, Jarius Jackson, for giving us McLeod Bethel Thompson. I say that and he's going to throw for 405 touchdowns or something stupid. But that's the good news.
Touchdowns is a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah,
well, he needs to get in the most outstanding player talk somehow.
Get out of the lull category.
Yeah. So he's going to start. That's such a, to me, like I said, that's the relief. Now for the Riders, who's going to return from injury? Because we saw more injuries. And those injuries, okay, well, we know Raquel Armstead probably won't play. The team said that they're taking it slowly with him this week to make a decision. Well, that tells me pretty much everything I need to know. Frankie Hickson took the number one reps on Tuesday, though AJ Ouellette did get into practice, but that's just because his window is now open to practice. He isn't eligible to come back. I mean, they can pull him off a 6 game anytime, but I can't imagine they're going to do it this game. If anything, I can see them doing it against BC next week.
I believe, if I remember correctly, his 6th game is his 6th game. So if you take him off now,
is it his 6th or is this his 5th? I thought he was due to come back after the bye, which is after next week.
I'll have to look at it again. I thought this was the 6th. If it was, there's no way they're bringing him back. They're not going to waste the cap savings for one game against Edmonton, even if it does potentially eliminate them.
But that does open the door for Thomas Bertrand-Houdon to get more runs as well, too, with Frankie Hickson being the de facto starter. A little bit more of a rotation, maybe. Mitch Picton practiced limited capacity in day 1. Getting him back would be absolutely huge because then you can get rid of Colton Hunchak. And that's a serious upgrade for me. So, and anytime Picton's gotten the chance, honestly, other than the end of the game, and what game was that earlier this year where he stepped out of bounds? Anyway,
Montreal.
yeah,
Tom?
that sounds right. Yep, it was Montreal. Other than that, honestly, the guy's been very, very solid in his career with the Riders. So getting him back would be excellent. Even if he's, has one more week, I'd say you pull him off a 6-game early anyway. Just get that depth for receivers because they need that right now. Talked about Sean Bain. Doesn't look the greatest. So who's going to take his place in the receiving group? Sounds like it's going back to Jareth Stearns. But he had really good rapport with Trevor Harris in the first couple weeks of the year. So even though he struggled after those first 2 or 3 games and subsequently got benched when both Keyshawn Johnson and Dante Myers cracked the roster, I'm all for giving Stearns another shot here, because if he can return to that form of the first couple games, that's a huge weapon for the Riders.
I mean, if you look at Sean Bain over the last 6-7 weeks, maybe more, actually, honestly, since game 1 of the season, he hasn't been the Sean Bain that we have, come to expect, or that you expected coming out of the gate last season. I actually think this might end up being an upgrade for the team. You mentioned the rapport with Trevor Harris. The two of them seem to click, especially on those second down conversions. And that's something with this type of offense, that's a big deal. You need that, that quick second down conversion, that guy that you trust. And for Trevor Harris, through the first few weeks, that was Jareth Stearns.
Oh yeah, Stearns was second downs. We had second down Stearns and fourth down Mitch. So if we can get both those guys back, that's a good upgrade for a receiving core, right?
Now, of course, we can't take the good without the bad, because that's been this whole season for the Riders in a nutshell. Habakkuk Baldonado on the D-line didn't practice
Not
day
Habakkuk.
one. Jacob Brammer not practicing day one, and that's after him finally getting back into the lineup last week. So maybe Nick Jones at right guard again, which I'm not terribly upset about, because that O-line was excellent with him in there with their current setup. So those guys not practicing the first couple of days. CJ Rivas still out with the knee injury. They put him on the 6-game list, which again, we know doesn't really mean anything, but it'll be interesting to see what happens with that position, because that was DeMarcus Fields playing in that spot last week. But if Deontai Williams doesn't play, which the team, from the way that they practiced in day one, basically that's kind of what they're assuming. Fields moves back to cornerback, and Antoine Brooks gets that linebacker spot. So it was a really interesting day 1 of practice. Henderson moving to cornerback, and that opens up for Antoine Brooks. But if Williams doesn't get suspended, which I still think probably will happen, but I guess the Riders are just getting ready just in case. So they'll be prepared either way, I think, which is good. But still, having CJ Rivas out still, hurts. And then
I just want to go one game without, 5 new guys on the injured list. Like, to see that did not participate list coming out today, and to see this every first practice is starting to break me. Like, we're seeing guys game in and game out. Our 6-game injured list could be an entire 24-man offense and defense pretty quick here. Like, it's just getting ridiculous. And then you add in special teams with Adam Korsak potentially out with a hamstring injury. That might be the biggest loss of them all.
Punter with a hamstring injury, that's not good.
Yep.
But luckily they have a guy on the couch that can come in. No.
Stop it.
Backup punter's name is Joe Couch. Come on. No? Okay.
Not giving you it. Nope.
All right. Fair enough. I agree that injury, Steve, though, could be thank you. Appreciate that.
I felt like you needed that.
That's the pity follow that Greg doesn't want. Thank you.
I'll give you this.
But yeah, Steve, to your point, that could be a bigger injury than almost anything else here that we saw from this one. But yeah, these injuries need to get out of here off. They need, yeah. So
these next 3 games are so huge. We just need to stay healthy and get healthy coming down to this playoff stretch, because this is a team that can compete with, I would say, anybody when they're healthy. But if we keep going to our 3rd, 4th, 5th string guys, because when you're running out Colton Hunchak, as your 6th receiver, no offense intended, you're starting to run into some issues health wise. We just need to get healthy and get ready for the stretch run.
Get healthy and win these next 2 games. You win these next 2 games against Edmonton and BC, you have second place locked up. Doesn't even matter what they do the final week against Calgary, because they'll be points ahead. They'll be 3 points ahead of BC going into the final week. So,
but to kind of take this thing off Steve, it doesn't matter if we're on our 4th or 5th strings. We are still in every game somehow. Like, if we get our players back, we should be good.
Especially now that we've learned how to win after Labor Day.
That's the big part.
Well, and that was what Jeff Fairholm said a couple weeks ago on the show too, right? Once you get those bounces and you win, right? They didn't forget how to win. They just weren't winning, and it's going to roll. It's going to start rolling once you get that winning again. And you can see just the relief on the team post game. Another win this week when they threw Corey Mace into the cold tub.
Do you know why they did that though?
That's tradition.
Well, know why it's tradition? Because he called the offensive line fat.
Oh, did he?
Yeah. He called them fat. So yeah, apparently that's a no. So you have to go in the cold tub. So they threw him in the cold tub.
Hey, if we're getting that kind of play out of a bunch of fat old linemen, keep eating, boys, because you guys are playing out of this world right now. So, game against Edmonton on Saturday, 5:00, and it's the last road game for the Riders this season. So, final 2 games at home, and if they can go in there and win this, they're sitting very, very comfortably going into the last couple of weeks of the regular season, at least in terms of clinching a playoff spot at the very least. So home playoff game, not out of the question, and looking more and more, especially with the way that BC's tailing off right now, looking more and more possible. Looking more and more possible.
There we go.
All right.
It's gonna be really weird for us, Alex, to actually watch this game from the couch. It's been such a nice stretch of games in the stands.
We've been to every game since the one in the Toronto
Ottawa
game
was the last one we missed.
Yeah.
And every one of them without Greg.
It's been good.
Even better. Yeah.
By choice. By my choice.
Yeah.
I don't remember you being invited to the other 2.
Well,
pretty sure it was out there, and I said, no, I can't do it.
Well, let's final thing for this week. Let's do our Piffles picks.
Piffles picks.
Well, folks, when you're right 52% of the time, you're wrong 48% of the time.
That's where we're standing right now. Last week, Greg and I did our best Kurt Hennig impersonation.
Absolutely perfect.
Yes. 4-0 against the spread. Steve, almost the exact opposite. At least you got the Rider game right.
You know what? I was on such a run there. I think I got a little bit cocky and decided to go against the grain. And it bit me in the butt a little bit. But you know what? I'm okay with that. Because the week turned out, other than Winnipeg winning, the week turned out pretty darn good.
It was a good week for the Riders, yes.
It was.
And even Winnipeg winning isn't the worst thing for us.
No.
You know what? I was talking to somebody else about this, and they were like, well, don't you want the Riders to catch Winnipeg for first? Yeah. It's not likely going to happen now. But you know what? Let Winnipeg win out in the regular season. Let them. They can go on What are they at? 7 in a row right now? Let them get to 10. Let them. Who cares? I don't care. They're very beatable, even at home.
Yes.
And let them play a couple games that don't matter at the end of the year, and then have a bye week, and then come back to a game that doesn't matter, and then a bye week, and then the playoffs. So not having a meaningful game in over a month, while every other team has played and presumably rolling going into that. I will take that. So let Winnipeg have it.
Legit, no team this year scares me at all.
No.
Doesn't matter if it's Montreal, Toronto, Winnipeg, BC. No team right now scares me.
No. Well, the first game this week, what are we looking at? Yeah, first game this week, Winnipeg in Hamilton. The Boveralls are real. Hamilton's playing.
I love it when stupid stuff gets over. I love it when
Right.
stupid stuff gets over.
This is very much a Jordan Kelly thing with the CFL. She was with Bar Down before with TSN before she got her job with the CFL. This is very much a Jordan thing, getting Boveralls going.
I just say I have no idea what that is. I don't know if I've missed some kind of memo.
What?
I don't know what this is. I have no idea.
Bully by
wearing
Mitchell
overalls. He's wearing
wore
overalls.
overalls pre-game, like when they walk into the stadium. You know how they always show, the guys' fits and OOTDs. Yep. Do they still say that? I don't know. The drip, whatever they have, whatever the kids are calling it. And he wore overalls. And then they won. So he wore overalls again. And then they won again. So they're calling them Boveralls.
Boveralls.
Huh. I'm not sure how I missed it, but it's exactly what I expected it would be.
Old guys like you wouldn't understand. So Winnipeg at Hamilton.
I mean, I literally hurt my shoulders sleeping. So, yeah, old guy indeed.
We'd have to bring it up that he hurt himself sleeping. Thank you.
Yeah,
I've accepted my age.
Let you keep some of your dignity, but
I lost that a long time ago.
It's dignity. Dignity. Don't you know what dignity looks like?
Here, I'll draw you a picture. It's a door. Winnipeg will be favored for sure. I'm guessing it will be 5.5.
Let's go 4.5.
I was going to do that because it always seems to be 4.5 now in the CFL. That seems the de facto. Who you guys got in this one?
I'm going to go with Hamilton.
Oh, why did I let him go first? Because I was very confident in Hamilton until he said Hamilton. It's in Hamilton. Boverall. I'm riding with Boveralls. I think they can cover that 4.5.
As a long-time Boveralls fan, I just have to say no.
I too was going to pick Hamilton to cover the spread, not to win, but to cover. But because I need to catch Greg, go strategic here, I will take Winnipeg, hoping I am wrong on this one. That's right, for the greater good.
In some places, actually, Hamilton has gone up to a 6.5 underdog. So, if you want,
I'd throw a little sprinkle in Hamilton in that one.
Yeah. So,
Calgary at BC. Steve, do you want to take a guess first? 4.5.
It's like, let's stick with it. I'm gonna go BC by 6.5.
4.5.
7.5.
Wow. Ugh.
And in some places, 11.5.
Ooh.
Wow.
They been? I mean, I realize Calgary sucks this year, but BC hasn't exactly been lighting it up.
Guys, Calgary could be eliminated from playoff contention this week.
Oh,
so beautiful.
We have waited since 2003 for this. Every year since 2004, they've made the playoffs.
Next week's episode, if they're out, it's just gonna be celebration on loop in the background of the entire episode.
The funny thing about sports is that a lot of fans, and I get caught up in this sometimes too. We take more joy in somebody else's suffering than our own team's, doing good.
Mhm.
I'd rather almost to the point where you'd rather see a team not win than to see your team win. It almost kind of feels that way with the Calgary Stampeders.
Well, victory is fleeting. Victory is it's a drug. Like you get a quick hit and you're done. But to watch someone else suffer, you can just sustain that.
Let's just talk about this for a second. We have 4 Grey Cups in our history. We have watched 2 of them since the last time the Stampeders missed the playoffs. Yes, I want to see them suffer. It is about damn time. I hope it continues for a decade. I would be happy if the Riders didn't win a single Grey Cup over the next decade if it meant Calgary also did not make the playoffs. That would bring me joy. And yes, I realize I'm proving your point. But I'd be okay with that.
Now's the time for the ding there, Greg.
Yeah. Anyway.
BC 7.5. That's a lot because BC's not. It's in BC though. Yeah, I'll take the Lions.
Yeah, there's nothing that makes me think Calgary will win this football game. It's definitely the Lions.
I don't think Calgary could even cover the 11.5. Yeah, BC.
All right, and the final game, because there's only 3 games this week, Saskatchewan at Edmonton.
I don't know. Saskatchewan 3.5.
Saskatchewan 1.5.
2.5. She's a field goal game.
Exactly the same as last week.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm taking the Riders. MBT's playing. I'm not too worried about the Elks run game in this one. And that was the only part of their offense that worried me going into this. So, yeah, I'll take the Riders.
So if Winnipeg wins on, was that Friday? Saturday?
Friday.
If Winnipeg wins, I think the Riders lose. Because then we have the chance to clinch a playoff spot. If Hamilton wins, I think the Riders win.
That would be such a Rider thing to do too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I've been a fan long enough to understand that when it comes right down to it, when there's a chance, when all the marbles or all the cards are on the table, that's when we Rider. So I realize that makes it a pain in the ass for you, but that's what I'm going with. If the Riders have a chance to
No.
You
got to pick
Hamilton. He picked Hamilton.
I did. Okay. You're right.
So that means you're picking the Riders.
Well, that's the cover.
Then I'm picking the Riders. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Well, no, but he picked Hamilton to cover at 4.5. Yeah. So are they going to cover the 2? It's not win or lose at this point. Are they going to cover 2.5 or not?
Oh no.
Are we going to win?
No.
Are we going to?
It's going to be a touchdown game one way or the other.
Okay. So which one?
Fine. I'll go with the Riders.
Greg?
Okay. Riders. I don't think I've picked against Riders all year, even when I probably should have.
All right. Well, there we go. There's our Piffles picks. And if you're, I feel another 3-0 week for me. Another Mr. Perfect week.
I got this.
I feel like I'm going to get over top of that, over top of the hump this week. Get over that 50%.
Somehow I'm going to go 50-50 this week. I'm going to win one, lose one, and one game's not going to finish.
You know what's funny is if things keep trending the way that the things keep trending the way that they are with our pick'em, our percentages, Jeff Fairhelm's going to finish in first at 500. 2-2.
Hey, once I get that 52%, it doesn't matter. So I'm going to beat Jeff by 2%.
Well, good luck. But with that, that's the Piffles podcast this week. Looking forward to the game on Saturday and another Rider victory. Piffles podcast brought to you by our great friends at Dairy Queen on Elphinstone Street and Sass Drive in Regina. Special thanks, of course, to Kathy Festian of Royal LePage Regina Realty and Churchill Brewing Company for their support, making this show possible. Thanks for listening wherever you get your podcasts, watching on YouTube or SaskTel Max TV on demand. We'll see you next week. Go Riders. This is Ghost Behind Your Mind by Tyler Gilbert.